Chapter 8, Human Population Growth. The case study is about China, and it's China's one-child policy. China started this policy in 1979, and they did it because they were faced with such a large population growth that they might not be able to feed their country and to provide jobs. And what it did was it actually saved their country. Back in the 1970s and 1980s, people thought this policy was absolutely terrible, a violation of human rights and a lack of freedom. And it is a lack of freedom and a lack of human rights. But China really did save their country through this policy. On the next page, turning to page 218, we have some positives and negatives of the Chinese policy. Positives are that because they stopped their population growth, now they're able to feed all their people. There's less environmental damage caused by too many people in their country, and they can provide enough jobs for the most part. The negative parts of the one-child policy is that there are some couples who abandon or kill girl babies. A lot of times they're aborted if they're females because Chinese culture values female babies above males. I'm sorry, the opposite. Chinese culture values boy babies above girl babies. Because of this abandoning or killing of girl babies or aborting them, you end up with more males than females in the country, and that has created a problem, especially in some villages where men can't find wives. Another problem is that there's not enough young people to support the old people. As the old people get old and can't work anymore, there's not enough younger workers to support their system of Social Security. On the next page, we have a graph that shows human population growth. It grows exponentially in a J curve. Will we hit a carrying capacity and end up with logistic growth with an S curve? Yes, we will. What will that number be? Scientists, demographers, which study human population growth, are not 100% clear on that at this point in time. Our current growth rate in the world is 1.2% growth annually. Now, this doesn't seem like a very high rate, but what this means is that our population will double in the world in about 58 years. And so we'll go from about 7 billion to about 14 billion in 58 years. And that's a big problem. If you look down at the map here, it shows population growth rates. And it shows where you're increasing in your oranges and reds, and where you're shrinking in these colors here. And you can see that we have some rapid population growth in certain countries and certain regions, but we also have declining. In the eastern United States, we are declining in population. The western United States, we're growing because people are actually moving from the cold, snowy east to the western United States. People are not having as many children in Europe and in Russia and Japan. And so they're facing declining population, whereas other places like Africa, South America, India are facing rapid population growth. On the next page, make sure you know IPAT. IPAT means the impact on the environment is equal to the population size times affluence, which is how rich you are and how much stuff you buy, times your technology in your country. So while China might have 1 billion more people than the United States, we have more affluence, we're richer, we have more technology, and it actually makes our impact on the environment higher. And this is under the section, population is one of several factors that affect the environment. Moving on to page 222, under the study of demography, we have here a chart that tells us that toolmaking, agriculture, and industrialization have all increased our carrying capacity as a world. We're able to feed more people and take care of more people with these 3 items. Moving on to the next section, demography is the study of human population. We have here the most populous nations, starting with China, India, United States, Indonesia, and Brazil. Notice that China and India are far above in population than us, which is third. You must know the top 5. China first, and then India, then US, Indonesia, and Brazil. And you must know these numbers. China has 1.3 billion, India 1.1, and the US 300 million. India does not have a one-child policy. They're actually a democracy. And India, people in India still have a lot of kids in the poorer parts of India. And India is supposed to surpass China in the next 20 years in terms of population growth. China has a dictatorship, a country where people do not have freedoms, and so they can implement a one-child policy there. On page 224, we have a map here of population density. What you need to know is that it's the highest in Southeast Asia, and you can see that by the dark reds over in here. Please make sure you do not put East Asia or Asia for an answer. It must be Southeast Asia, India, parts of China, Indonesia, these places, because not all of Asia is highly densely populated. You have parts up here and that are not. Talking about age pyramids. The top 2 age pyramids on page 225 show 2 very different age pyramids. Let's talk about how to read them. You have here sideways bar graphs, starting with 0, going to 1 million, and 0 going to also 1 million here under my sticky note. And then we have population. So from ages 0 to 5, we have just under 1 million males and just under 1 million females in Canada in 2005. And so this tells you for each cohort of 5 years of age, it tells you how many males and how many females there are. And there's some bumps here on the side that represents a baby boom. So after World War II, the soldiers came home in Canada and the US and Germany and Japan and even China, and they had lots of babies. And so we call that a baby boom. And so you can see in Canada here you have these sides. This is Madagascar, and Madagascar is rapidly increasing. There are lots of babies born in the bottom cohorts here, lots and lots of children. And people die off very quickly when they're old because of lack of medical care. This is an African country. Anytime you see very pronounced sides, that you have this very pronounced triangle, that indicates a rapidly increasing population. Anytime you have sides that are sort of straight-ish sides, you have a stable population. Stable population has logistic growth, so an S-curve here. Now, we usually think of these S-curves as indicating carrying capacity, but in this case, it's kind of a voluntary carrying capacity. People in Canada, the US, European countries, Japan, they don't have as many children as they used to. And so because of that, they've leveled off in their population. They're not growing anymore. And in some places, they're actually shrinking. Japan is shrinking. Italy's shrinking in population size because people are having 0 or 1 children for the most part. This is not in your book, but this will be on your test. So that's why there's a little star here to make sure that you know this. At the bottom of this page, this is page 225, we have here a picture of China's aging population. And China is concerned about this, and so they're letting some couples have more than 1 child so that they can increase their younger population. On page 226, we have the United States age pyramid. You can see this these sites that kind of poof out a little bit more than the others, that is a post-World War II baby boom. So again, the soldiers came home from the war and they had lots of babies. It was a very, and it is still a very large population. Currently, they're in their 50s and 60s right now. They're a very large population. If you look down here, you are also a pretty large population, and that will help support the old folks' Social Security, which is good. There's 3 different colors on these age diagrams. The first color represents ages 0 to 14, which is pre-reproductive ages. The next one is 15 to 40. It actually should be 44. I made a mistake here, but 15 to 44 is reproductive ages. Those are the ages that women can have children. Doesn't mean they should when they're 15, but they can. And then after 45, you have your post-reproductive ages, when women most of the time, with rare exceptions, cannot have children past this age. On page 227, and this is under the section Population Growth Depends on Rates of Birth, Death, Immigration, and Emigration. Immigration is coming into a country. Emigration is leaving a country. There's a couple of terms you need to know. You need to know what TFR means on page 227. TFR stands for your total fertility rate. This is the number of children a woman has in her lifetime. I have a TFR of 2. I have 2 boys, and that's all I'm going to have. So my TFR is 2. On some tests and on the AP tests, they will call it just total fertility. Instead of TFR, they will just say total fertility. And under here, you can see here, the total fertility in China has gone down from 5.8 children per woman to 1.6 children per woman. They measure it per woman instead of married couple because sometimes a woman gets divorced and has children with more than one husband, or doesn't have a husband, or is a widow. The husband dies and she marries again. So they don't count it children per family or per couple. They count it per woman. Replacement fertility is another term you need to know. It's the TFR needed to keep the population stable. In developed countries like the US, like Europe, like Canada, like Japan, like Korea, it's 2.1. That means on average, every woman has 2.1 children. Now, wouldn't you say 2 children replaces the mom and the dad, right? Well, 0.1 accounts for the fact that some children, unfortunately, die before they have children, or they're infertile, they can't have children of their own. So we say it's 2.1. In developing countries, poor countries, this number is going to be higher because children can die more readily from diseases in developing country. So this number might be more like 2.4 or 2.7 to account for children dying. Turning the page to 228. We have a chart here showing the TFRs of different regions. So Africa has the highest TFR at 5.1. That's 5 children per woman. And then it goes down from there. Because women in Africa are having so many children, they have a rapidly growing population. But if you look at Europe, it's at 1.4 here, which shows that it is shrinking. Look at North America at 2.0. That is less than replacement fertility. 2.1 is replacement fertility. Oh, by the way, Oceania is Australia and New Zealand. So why does North America growing, and in the U.S. and a little bit in Canada, but mostly the U.S., it's because of immigration. So we are only growing in population because of immigration. Otherwise, we'd be stable or slightly declining. And overall in the world, less people are dying due to food, vaccines, healthcare, and sanitation. I'll pause here and finish in a moment on the next video.